Hello, friends. Welcome to another exciting episode of Calvary Connection Podcast. This time looking at chapter 7 of this book right here, Becoming a Hybrid Church. Today we're diving into the concepts of congregational care and pastoral care in a hybrid setting. So Pastor Genelle, what is congregational care? Why do we do it in the first place?
Yeah, I think what we said last time too. It is an outward flow of what God has already done for us. God cares for us. God cares for every need we have and even gives us more than we need. And so we bless others with that care. So we love because God first loved us. I think we could insert we care because God first cared for us and cares for us. I mean, Martin Luther said it's the duty of all Christians to be Christ to their neighbor. So the care people offer is an extension of the care we receive from God. And again, I think we hope that this is a natural outflowing of just who we are as followers, as Christians, kind of as human beings, because we're so social beings.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, just instinctually, that's who we are. And I think even more so than we were talking about with service. Service, we want that to be instinctual too. This is, I think, usually an even easier thing because it's our natural response to check in with each other when we see each other.
Yeah.
You know, you meet someone in church on Sunday, there's someone you've known for a long time, say, hey, how was your weekend? How are the kids doing?
Right.
Man, that was a huge windstorm. Did you have any damage to your house?
Right.
Or if that person isn't there, that you're used to seeing them in a given place in the pew every Sunday, you may call to check on them.
Yeah.
And it's not because you feel obligated because I'm a Christian, I should do that. I mean, yes, but it's a natural outflowing of the relationships that we share with one another. And when we are in person, since time immemorial, that is a natural piece, right?
Right.
Not quite so easy or natural when we're not in person, when we're looking at this hybrid setting.
Yep. I think especially at the height of the pandemic, before the vaccination, when we're really isolated at home, the interesting thing is we all felt hurt, we all felt scared, we all felt sad, we all felt isolated. It didn't even really feel like a challenge yet. We like, what is going on? You know, like keep the wheels on the bus. But what outflowed from that was hearing stories of people finding ways to connect with their family. Kind of heartbreaking stories about, the nursing homes, how we had to find ways to FaceTime into there and the isolation that was truly happening there. But all the way to these great stories about like these family gatherings that would happen virtually and all across America that just didn't even happen before. So people really dug deep and found ways, and even to be creative, playing cards while they visited and things like that, because I think we are such social beings that it was quick to pivot, especially to those that were in our immediate circle of care, to do that. I
mean, I remember the very earliest days of the pandemic, we started having family dinners with my parents or Catherine's parents every night, setting up, the Skype call or whatever with Bjorn so that he could eat his chicken nuggets while he's talking to Grandpa and Abuela. And even now, every night, we do that with Catherine's parents, and then he's able to talk with them. And it's just something that has continued.
See, and without the pandemic, we probably wouldn't have thought about that except on milestones maybe or something like that. So there's some beauty that we learned about the technology that we had that has really, Bjorn getting to know his abuela and abuelo every night, that ritual, that change, that's just beautiful. So I think those caring concepts, as difficult and as painful as it was, and it wasn't innate. It wasn't natural. We had to find ways.
It needed to be intentional.
Yes. And someone had to spark the idea. You know, brothers saying, hey, we need to see each other. If that's virtually, let's do it. Or we still want to get together for our car club. How are we going to do that? Well, finding new ways. It took a while. But,
and I think it's important to point out that all of those things are a form of congregational care, right? It is about the relationships we have with one another based on the love that God has for all of us that we've experienced.
That's right. And I think, again, when you think about going to church and having care there, that it kind of stays here, that congregational care. But really, what the book's talking about, what God's intention was not a place gathering us just for that care, but it happening all over.
Yeah.
So I'm checking on somebody, like you said, that I know through church, not because I see them or don't see them, but because I care about them. Sending a birthday card. We've had these mentor relationships, and I know some of the Lent mentors are still in touch with the youth that they mentored at those milestones. That's card sharing is kind of a hybrid model. You don't have to be in person, but it's been a long time running thing to put a stamp on a card and mail it, but still a form of care.
Absolutely.
So what happened right at the time is that we got together, I remember as a staff thinking, how are we going to care for one another?
Not knowing how long it was going to last.
And so much of our stuff was come here, be together, or gather somewhere and be together. So I charged you with a huge task of putting a calling tree together.
Yeah.
We called it the telecare team.
Initially, it was supposed to be like, okay, we're going to do this for a few weeks because this is how long it's going to take, just to maybe check in on everybody. Had a huge list of what we thought were all the people from Calvary, and assigned, I think, like we had 25 volunteers or something like that, each calling a huge list of people. We found out quickly that not necessarily a super successful piece. Sometimes it was.
Yeah.
You know, there were certainly members on that team who got back to me and told me they had rich conversations with people, and conversations that went for an hour, you know, around their shared faith together. But there were also a lot of folks that just didn't connect with anyone. I mean, I think across all the teams, it would be rare to have had more than a 20% connection rate.
Yeah.
And that's borne out when we had recently the church council call around to welcome people to the homecoming Sunday. Just because people don't answer their phones.
And phone numbers have changed, and we haven't relied on home phones as much as cell phones.
And that's a natural thing. I mean, I don't say that in order to blame anyone. It's just
No.
because I know I don't answer unfamiliar phone calls either.
Right.
It's just the nature of the time in which we live that telephone communication in and of itself is becoming obsolete.
Yeah.
It's not the way that a lot of people connect with each other. I mean, especially if you look at young folks today. I remember when I was a young folk, you know, way back in the day, the stereotypical teenager was one that was always on their phone, right? Now, never. I mean, how many times do you see a teenager actually talking on the phone? It's not like that. It's about texting. It's about all the different apps they're using. That telephone connection isn't necessarily going to be the best way to communicate necessarily.
And that's a tough learning curve for us who have come from that just being something that you expect, to reworking your expectations to say it works for some but not for all. And so how do we find a variety of different things that try to connect with our size of church, with all the members?
Well, and that gets to, when you talk about like the size of church that Calvary is, it gets to the connection and difference between congregational care and pastoral care, right?
Yeah, I think that our size, a corporate size congregation, what we're really charged to do is equip others to be the ministers. So finding ways that, again, priesthood of all believers, all of that Lutheran stuff that's really at the root, the heart of who we are, home communion ministry teams, grief share groups that are lay-led, the care cards that are lay-led, birthday cards, the things that people are doing, the prayer chain, was really a lay-led group of people who just feel like they are prayer warriors, all of that equipping. And yet there are still people who are disappointed that it's not pastor, it's not you calling or me calling. And again, I get some of that disappointment. We are just too large to the point where we can do pastoral care. Really, our role is to equip other people to do pastoral care, not to get us out of it, but to replicate quicker the kind of care that is needed in this size of congregation. So, and as we've grown, that's been one of our growing pains, and we've had that. But I think even the home communion team, every once in a while we hear, Pastor, it'd be nice if you...
Absolutely. If someone would rather have... I mean, it was great for me to be there, but they would really love a visit from you specifically. And it's like, I get that. But at the same time, what we're really hoping to get closer to with the love of Christ is this idea that it's not about specific persons, right? It's not about Pastor Jeremiah loving on someone or Pastor Genelle loving on someone, although that's part of it and wonderful. It is about Christ loving on someone through whoever happens to be there. That is the love that we have in community. And I think it's important for us to try to reach that point culturally where we can recognize the presence of the Spirit regardless of who it's coming from.
Right. And again, I think the best part of it not being directed by us and it happening innately really does empower the people to say, I tapped into the Christ in me and I'm sharing it with the Christ in another. And that is just the rich learning. And I encourage you to try that. Again, this is practice. This is practice.
And it is in those moments where God shows up so powerfully.
Yes.
My mom was a home communion minister. I think still might be at First Lutheran in Duluth for decades. And she told me stories of how when she would bring communion to someone at home and they would share that, just the two of them, she never felt closer to God than in those moments. Because where 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, He's present. Right? And that is care not from necessarily a pastor, but it is pastoral and congregational.
I would say if you asked the majority of people in seminary why they're being called into ministry, it is because we're relational people and we do want to care and be an extension. And the trap is, I mean, I could do it all day. I could do it all day. I would go from house to house and visit people. I would love it. It would fill my cup because it feels so powerful as a God moment. I think that's why it's so powerful for me too. However, if I just did that, like you said, it would become about me and my personality instead of equipping other people. And again, I know we've heard disappointments of us sending other people in our stead or equipping other people to do that, and it just wasn't. But the pastor hasn't done it. And again, I think behind the scenes, we are doing a lot of that equipping. We are empowering. We're sending out because it's not an extension of Jeremiah and I. It's an extension of Christ. And so know that we've heard your disappointments and we feel them. And yet we hope that together we can see that a way forward is going to be all of us feeling equipped to meet the Christ in another and really care for one another because we are the church and not just because we're asking you to or leading you to. And again, I think that's how the church started. These disciples just caring for one another, these communities, Acts 2:42 places just getting together, actually giving all their money, pulling all that. We are not quite there, but really seeing that, and again, the emergency care of the stuff that really we have to do or qualified to do, we are still doing in spades. But I think really catching this glimpse that we are all caregivers and care receivers,
and that's part of being community. That's what community is at its core, not just as Christians but as human beings. And that actually brings us to the next topic of, okay, what does that look like going forward? I mean, once we get past COVID, what is a hybrid congregational care going to look like? Because it's not just saying, well, we did that during COVID, now we're going back to the way it was. Right?
I don't know if there's any going back. I think it is all moving forward, but I don't know if we've discovered all these yet. We are still landing and even trying to worship in person, what that looks like, let alone have care groups in person. A lot of people are trying to be safe and vigilant, and I understand that. And so I think hearing from you, what would it feel like in this hybrid time moving forward? What would it feel like to be cared for by your church home, by your church family? What things could we learn from what we learned with what we did with our own family and friends that we could replicate or continue? I do think that the grief share, the prayer team, the care cards, all those things will continue. Home communion ministry team, and what else? What else would be things? So hearing from you, I think, is going to be intentional. But I do think there was this great quote. I don't know if I got the page number, but this is a hope I want to hang on if you're not reading the book. This is what Richard says. David says, a hybrid church is not a pandemic church. It is a church that is moving into the future, catapulted into that future from the pandemic into new ways of being church together. I love that. It's like I hear Psalm 23. God's going to get us through this valley that we know is the pandemic. Not going to be stuck in it.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be a pandemic church. We're going to be, we were shaped by the pandemic to be the future church that God needs us to be. So I think there's a lot of discovery yet to happen, especially with congregational care. And I think knowing that we have a role in helping shape and equip people to do congregational care will be a key part of it. And also there's a lot more to discover.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, we really are just on the cusp of what this is going to look like. And we're going to try some things and they'll fizzle or not do as well as we had hoped. But that's natural, right? We find the things that work and we let go of the things that don't. And that's been the human story forever.
Yeah, right.
And it will continue to be the Christian story going forward into this new time.
I agree. So your feedback is crucial in this topic, and not only your personal story, but what hopes and dreams you have for looking like a caring Christian community that gathers here at Calvary and beyond, so that we can equip you as people of God called to do this work that is truly congregational care.
Yeah.
So we look forward to hearing from you. You can email in at podcast@calvarybemidji.org. Join us for the Zoom calls on Wednesday nights at 7:15, and that information is on our website. And again, it's just a time to share thoughts and feelings, emotions about what we're learning about being a hybrid church. So a great time to log on and tell some of your stories and experiences or hopes and dreams for congregational care. So we hope you join us then. But
absolutely. And next week we have everyone's favorite topic, hybrid church, and what is it?
Stewardship.
That's the word.
Yeah. Time, talent, and treasure. So we'll talk about what that looks like in a hybrid church moving forward. But until then, have a great week. God bless you.
We love you very much.